Well, there is complete chaos today in Ottawa over the resignation of Chrystia Freeland. And of course, that was kind of out of the blue. We knew that the Prime Minister was upset with her, and we knew that there was tension. But I didn't anticipate that she would resign. Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. I hope you're having a great day. Well, this is a significant day indeed in Canadian politics. If you watched my video this morning, you might have noticed that I predicted there would be a cabinet shuffle and that Chrystia Freeland would no longer be the finance minister. Somebody else would be brought in, most probably Mark Carney, and then she would be shuffled aside, and then Melanie Joly would be brought in as the deputy prime minister. And of course, that was before Chrystia Freeland dropped the bomb today and she resigned. Let's take a look at her letter to the prime minister, and then we'll talk about it some more. This is the letter to the prime minister from Chrystia Freeland. It dated this date. Dear Prime Minister, it has been the honor of my life to serve in government working for Canada and Canadians. We have accomplished a lot together. On Friday, you told me you no longer want me to serve as your finance minister and offered me another position in cabinet. Upon reflection, I've concluded that the only honorable and viable path is for me to resign from cabinet. To be effective, a minister must speak on behalf of the prime minister and with his full confidence. In making your decision, you made clear that I no longer credibly enjoy that confidence and possess the authority that comes with it. For the past number of weeks, you and I have found ourselves at odds about the best path forward for Canada. Our country today faces a grave challenge. The incoming administration in the United States is pursuing a policy of aggressive economic nationalism, including a threat of 25% tariffs. We need to take that threat extremely seriously. That means keeping our fiscal powder dry today, so we have the reserves we may need for an incoming tariff war. That means eschewing costly political gimmicks which we can ill afford and which make Canadians doubt that we recognize the gravity of the moment. That means pushing back against America First economic nationalism with a determined effort to fight for capital and investment and the jobs they bring. That means working in good faith and humility with the premiers of the provinces and territories of our great and diverse country, and building a true Team Canada response. I know Canadians would recognize and respect such an approach. They know that when we are working for them, and they equally know when we are focused on ourselves. Inevitably, our time in government will come to an end, but how we deal with the threat our country currently faces will define us for a generation and perhaps longer. Canada will win if we are strong, smart, and united. It is this conviction which has driven my strenuous efforts this fall to manage our spending in ways that will give us the flexibility we need to meet the serious challenges presented by the United States. I will always be grateful for the chance to have served in government, and I will always be proud of our government's work for Canada and Canadians. I look forward to continuing to work with my colleagues as a Liberal Member of Parliament, and I am committed to running again for my seat in Toronto in the next federal election. With gratitude, the Honourable Chrystia Freeland, PC MP. So she up and pulled the pin after losing the confidence of the Prime Minister. Will the Prime Minister do the same? Well, Pierre Poilievre made an announcement or held a press conference outside of the House today, just prior to question period. Let's go and see what he had to say.
What we are seeing is the government of Canada itself is spiraling out of control, right before our eyes and at the very worst time. Today, mere hours before Trudeau's finance minister was to deliver a fall economic update that was expected to smash through her already massive deficit targets, she announced she no longer has confidence in the Prime Minister. Canadians were already anxious about the reckless $40 billion deficit the government had announced last spring, but today, in mere hours, they were expected to learn that it was much higher than that, threatening our social programs and our fiscal stability right in the middle of a potential trade war. The Prime Minister, with the help and instigation of carbon tax carney pushed Ms. Freeland to bring on massive, unsustainable, irresponsible spending increases that blew through her self-imposed guardrail. He thought that he would simply push her through that guardrail and off the cliff so that she, and not he and Mr. Carney, would take the blame for the crisis that he and they caused. To continue the chaos, think of this. The moment the finance minister resigned, the government's published order of precedent meant that François-Philippe Champagne instantaneously became the finance minister. But now he tells us he doesn't have the job and doesn't want the job. So it goes to the next minister who's on the published order of precedent, and that is Randy Boissonnault, more commonly known as the two Randys, the gentleman who had to resign because he falsely claimed he was Indigenous, falsely claimed that there were more than one Randy when it was all him and all in his head, and he is now technically our finance minister as we speak. We don't know for sure, though, if he'll still be finance minister in 3.5 hours when the scheduled fall economic update is expected to land. That update, by the way, is currently covered by a black blanket underneath a table. No one is allowed to look at it, even though journalists and parliamentarians showed up to read it in briefing rooms to this day, earlier today. So here we are. Everything is spiraling out of control. Out of control spending and bureaucracy has doubled housing costs, with 1,400 homeless encampments taking over Ontario alone. Out of control immigration has led to refugee camps opening in suburban Canada. And then we have 500,000 people in the country illegally, according to government estimates. Out of control crime overtakes our once tranquil streets, with gun crime having doubled. Out of control drugs and disorder add to the chaos, with 47,000 of our people dead of overdoses since Trudeau legalized drug laws, stopped enforcing them, and allowed limitless sums of fentanyl ingredients into our country. Out of control inflation has followed out of control money printing, which has sent out of control demand to our food banks, which are running out of food altogether. Out of control spending has doubled our national debt, boosted interest rates, and threatened our social programs. And it's not just Freeland who thinks this Prime Minister is out of control. Now Housing Minister Sean Fraser has resigned in the middle of a housing crisis. The Minister is resigning, the Finance Minister is resigning in the middle of an economic crisis, and a fifth of his Liberal caucus has lost confidence in him. Justin Trudeau has lost control, and yet he clings to power. We cannot accept this kind of chaos, division, weakness, while we're staring down the barrel of a 25% tariff from our biggest trading partner and closest ally, which, by the way, is headed by a newly elected president with a strong and fresh mandate, a man who can spot weakness from a mile away. Ms. Freeland has been Mr. Trudeau's most trusted minister now for a decade, for 9 years. She knows him better than anyone, and she knows that he's out of control. She said this: "Our country faces a grave challenge. The incoming administration in the United States is pursuing a policy of aggressive economic nationalism, including the threat of a 25% tariff. We need to take that threat extremely seriously. That means we have to keep our fiscal firepower dry today, so we have the reserves we may need for a coming tariff war. That means eschewing costly political gimmicks, which we can ill afford, and which makes Canadians doubt that we recognize the gravity of the moment. I know Canadians would recognize and respect such an approach. They know we are working for them. They know when we are working for them, and they know when we are working for ourselves. Inevitably, our time in government will come to an end. Will come to an end," she said, and I quote. And it is coming to an end, because we simply cannot go on like this. And it is up to Jagmeet Singh now to make that realization. Mr. Trudeau is being held in office by one man, Jagmeet Singh. A fifth of Liberal MPs have written a letter for him to resign. His deputy prime minister has walked out on him. His housing minister has quit. That on top of numerous other female ministers who stormed out after his appalling mistreatment and abuse and dishonesty towards them. 80% of Canadians have lost confidence in this Prime Minister. So why is Jagmeet Singh making the entire country wait for him to get his pension? That is the question today.
Of course, that is the question. Why does he still prop up the government? In question period today, Jagmeet Singh did ask for the Prime Minister to resign or call for him to resign, but he didn't call for the Prime Minister to call an election. The Bloc called for the Prime Minister to call an election, and of course, so did the Conservatives. But after question period, during points of order, that's where something significant happened, because at 4 o'clock, when the fall economic statement was to be released, this happened.
Before I recognize honourable members who are rising on a point of order, comme il est 16 heures.
It being 4 p.m., pursuant to order made Wednesday, December 11th, 2024, I am required to interrupt the proceedings to permit the Minister of Finance to make a statement.
Given the information provided by the Government House Leader to the House, indicating that the Government does not intend to proceed with the statement at this time, the remaining provisions of this motion cannot take effect. That is the period reserved for questions and comments and the replies from the various parties which are dependent on the statement being made. Puisqu'aucune déclaration ne sera...
In the absence of a statement, the House will resume the business that would normally be before it at this time.
Orders of the day, ordre du jour, but I will go to points of order. I'm going to listen to the points of order from various members before I come back to members. So the honourable member for Regina Capella is on his feet on a point of order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I just want to go over the facts of this case. Last week, a few days ago, the Government House Leader negotiated in good faith with all the opposition parties a process by which the fall economic update could be tabled in the House. We all agreed on that. That was not something that was going to happen automatically. It took the participation of all parliamentary parties to allow that to happen. We agreed in good faith. We expected it to happen. Everything that has happened today has been entirely of the government's own making. And parliamentarians should not be deprived of the information as to what is the fiscal situation here in Canada. Canadians are facing an unprecedented crisis on housing, on inflation, on debt and deficits. And this government has a statutory obligation to table these documents by the end of the year. This is the second last sitting day. And you have just denied a request for an emergency debate on this very same issue. There is no other opportunity for parliamentarians to find out just how bad the books are. But I go back to the point as to the fact that the government themselves initiated this agreement. The government committed to opposition parties that it would happen today. And so I ask you, Mr. Speaker, the fact that they are in chaos is not the problem of parliamentarians. It is a problem for Canadians, but it is not a problem caused by Canadians. And they have a right to know exactly what's happening with their tax dollars. And now for the government to come in at literally the last minute and pull the carpet out of an economic update is unbelievable. It is not the actions of a serious G7 NATO partner country. So at the very least, Mr. Speaker, I ask that you find the government in contempt of the House order that was passed by all members of this place.
And all that was in response to Karina Gould standing up at 15:54 after question period, saying all during question period that there would be an economic statement tabled in the House. She stood up at 15:54 and announced this.
Mr. Speaker, given what happened earlier today, I would like to inform the House that notwithstanding, there will not be any ministers' the Finance Minister statement at 4 p.m. today.
So the big question in my mind is, will the government get away with this? And of course, the answer is probably yes, because they really don't care about procedures. They really don't care about Canadians, and they will do anything to help themselves out. And this is probably why Chrystia Freeland quit earlier today, because she finally just decided she couldn't put up with it anymore. But that's just my opinion. I'd love to know what you think. Put your comments down below. And while you're at it, please like this video, share with your friends and on social media. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and hit that bell notification so you never miss another video. Also, please join me on Thursday evenings for my live stream, where you can join in on the conversation. That will be broadcast on YouTube and, if all goes well, on Rumble at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Finally, if you wish to obtain your Canadian firearms license, also known as a PAL, and you reside on Vancouver Island, there are links in the description of this video to my website where you can sign up to take a course from me, which is required before you get that license. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.